So I think that's an important, that would be an important thing, because the X spaces can begin to have, if it is something about asset recovery, so that there is that conversation there, and to also, target the asset recovery, and then say we have gathered information that so and so, this is money that they didn't have. Even when, for example, now we say wealth declarations, because every 2 years, I think, public servants must declare what wealth they have. Like when you get into the position, 2 years later, it should even be 1 year. And then if, you find that somebody has got unexplained wealth, then the asset recovery institution is told to look at you, and also this independent jury that was suggested. I think that's a good citizen innovation, because under Article 1, people are beginning to create a people's government, which is going to also shadow all government entities for public accountability. So I accept that. And actually, those who are abroad, you can follow in the countries, like if it's a country which we have done a contract with, their laws are better in terms of availing information. So you can tell them that we want this information, and even use their court processes, their institutions, to get that kind of information and bring it back home. But this issue of where one has got wealth from, it is an issue that requires to be followed, because people must get to a position where they understand that you can't profit from the government if you're working with it, accept that you're coming here to get a salary, and that's it. It was the Ndegwa report just after independence, which said that civil servants could do business, because the constitution was clear. When you have this job, you are not allowed to do, any other, you are not supposed to get into the private sector. And there are some companies, there are some countries, especially in the Arab world, where when you get into government, whatever businesses you were doing are now run by an entity of government, so that you don't do, you are not supposed to do business whatsoever until your tour of duty is completed, so that there isn't this conflict. Of interest. How can we implement the constitution in its totality? There this civil society, the Kenya Human Rights Commission, the Katiba Institute, and the many who have really done us proud in terms of all the time litigating when the constitution is infringed. And I think that is an important thing to do. And these X spaces require to connect with them so that they can give them a push in terms of things that they take to court. But on the whole, one of the principal reason for our government is to follow the constitution. So in actual fact, we shouldn't even have a situation where a government is being forced to follow the constitution. If there are lapses, they should be minor. And then when the government is told that you have done wrong here, it quickly corrects. And if people have to be taken to court or whatever, that happens. But I think for me, this Gen Z movement, its major focus and thrust, therefore, is to ensure that Kenya becomes a country where the constitution is implemented to the letter. And when we get to a situation of changing it, again, there is real consensus. We don't have changes just because people feel they need changes that will help them. The judiciary, actually, particularly when I worked at the counties, was very helpful in terms of protecting devolution, because national government did many things wanting to undermine devolution that has happened from 1963, when the first edition of devolution was cancelled. So yes, there is also, like everywhere else in the public sector, some corruption, but that's one arm that requires more engagement more engagement so that when there are bad things they are doing, they are told, and also they are supported when there is the onslaught of the executive. But many constitutional things, like BBI was stopped by the judiciary, things that are not legal, the judiciary takes, and it has prevented unconstitutional or constitutional changes. But again, whether it is the executive, it is the legislature, it's the judiciary, it's the independent commissions and offices, when they do wrong things, they must be called. They must be called out. I think one thing about Raila, I think one has to acknowledge, and this was said, that historically, he has been quite helpful in this country, and even suffered detention, I think, for 8-9 years and all that kind of stuff. He almost got, in 82, he almost got executed because of being associated with the coup. But again, given where we are, one has to be extremely sensitive to the demands of Gen Zs. Because, in today's meeting at KCC, when one sees ODM, one sees, all those parties there, it's like they are begging for inclusion in a coalition government, in a government of national unity. And if that happens, without the Gen Z saying that this is what they want, and I'm not sure that's what they want, then that would not be a good thing. But where he has also helped this country from, that can't be denied him. His father, Jaramogi, was even really a major actor in our structure, in our constitutional political structure, alongside Pio Kagia and all those all those others. Now, the judiciary, when they were attacked, and I think the Chief Justice's office was attacked, there's usually a judiciary protection unit of police, but somehow they were absent during that period. So one hopes that going forward, they are going to be more careful to protect these offices that are supposed to be protected. I think in my reading of the IBC, these changes that happened, and Eric will also tell us, there isn't that thing about cars being, or vehicles being polling stations in some instances, but I want us to look at the Elections Amendment Bill. I think that's where normally it would be. But I have not looked at it, so I don't want to comment to say that it is there or it's not there. But I saw that Kioni said it was somewhere there. But in the IBC, I've looked at the IBC. I've just, as we talked now, I have quickly looked at the IBC amendments, the IBC bill of 4th March 2024, unless at the end there were some changes introduced, which take into account stuff like that. But normally, those kinds of provisions should be in the election amendment bill. We talked about the conflict of interest, about the National Assembly saying, this is not allowed and so on. The party, one of the problems with our political parties is they are not ideological. They are basically owned by the people. They are mostly ethnic based. They're ethnic based, and therefore, most of them don't have long staying power. They are electoral units, and then after elections, that's it. Very few survive any election, and therefore, unless, for example, the Gen Z comes up with a manifesto, unless, for example, they think about whether they want to have a
Guys, looks like we lost the speaker. Is Professor still on the mic?
Raymond, I can't
Hello?
hear Professor.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, Prof, you're back.
You can hear me?
Yeah, yeah, we can hear Prof. Bwana.
Okay.
Proceed.
Yeah. So going forward, I think, but maybe that's something that the movement will think about. But the route of independent candidates, it's an interesting route, but they may think about, either adopting a party, having a party, or adopting several parties which are sympathetic to what the agency likes. The civic education is very critical, and that's why through these spaces and every other way, one has to reach as many people so that they're at the same level with you guys. The IBC, I talked about how, given where we are in terms of this law that has been ascended to, and given that the panel will they will use competitive methods to the panel. For people to come into the panel, a competitive method is used. So it is up to Gen Z, this movement, to look at the people who come to the panel and later the people who apply to become commissioners, so that it's really people of significant integrity, and to be very, very clear that those are the people who are going to give us a commission that can be in charge of truly free, fair, transparent elections, as the Constitution says we should have. Of course, we'll remember that in 2022, when after there was the mandamano because of the question of the elections, the people who died were not. That issue was forgotten because I think ODM did go to court. They said that they'll be compensated and so on, and they were forgotten. And I was saying this because we saw during this time the Gen Z movement itself trying to assist the families and those who are in hospitals and so on. So that's also something else to keep on reminding, that even when people get hurt and all that and die and so on, when you don't follow up, then people have a bad taste in the mouth. They are saying that it's like we are being used. And when we get, the political class goes and talks and forgets us. So this was extremely commendable. What Anifa and Mwangi and Hussein and all of you, what you did in terms of also crowd funding, and you have been crowd sourcing your ideas, and that has assisted a lot. Therefore, the last question, I think you cannot trust anybody, and that was said emphatically, that you cannot trust anybody to get into leadership. Meaning that the Gen Zs are once beaten, twice shy. They really, don't want to hear names being floated and all that kind of stuff. But I want to say, even if you don't trust the older people, you must trust yourselves. If I can remember historically, Muammar Gaddafi became Libya's leader at 27. Thomas Sankara led Burkina Faso at 34. There was the president of Madagascar, Andri, who was actually a former event organizer. And he initially became president of the High Transition Authority of Madagascar at 35. Martin Luther King, who led America's civil rights movement, did so at 26, started doing so at 26. Sebastian Kurz, who became Chancellor of Austria, did so at age 31. Sanna Marin became Finland's prime minister at 34. Jacinda Kate Laurel became New Zealand's Prime Minister at 37, and she had been elected as a member of parliament at 28. So these examples confirm that it is a myth that young people cannot occupy the highest offices of the country. So it is up to you to prepare yourselves in all ways. And know it's a long struggle, but we need to have a country that is a human rights centered state, and the constitution is implemented to the full. The economy is democratized, and young people, have a major role in their country, and that's my prayer. Thank you.
May I please ask for clarity through the host? Please. Okay. I think probably Eric is able to answer to this or respond to this. According to the IEBC to settle, to get reconstituted, to get this done, that done, he raised something that we thought on the panel, we thought the people that had attended that meeting that maybe could be the easiest way for us. Can't the presiding and the returning officers at the county level, can't they call for elections? That's one thing I would like clarified. And then the other thing about trust, Professor Kivuda, we do not trust the political elite. That's what we are trying to put forward. We do not trust the political elite. And amongst us, amongst the Gen Zs, the millennials, we do have leaders. We do have courage. We just need to find our structure. We just need to find our way up there. So I will yield with, with that. Thank you.
Okay, I also need a certain clarification here, kindly. Maybe Eric or Kivuda can answer me. I was suggesting if we can have a transitional council that can work parallel to this government. And since of course saizi kila mtu ni we don't trust this government at all these airlines. So can we have a transitional council that will have maybe people activists there, we'll have maybe the people from the civil society and also Gen Z. Manake we are the founders of this revolution.
Okay, one more question from my end. Now that we know that Ruto has violated the constitution so many times, can we indict him, or do we need again another referendum to come up with laws? Because it seems right now that he can suspend the constitution anytime he wants and do whatever he wants. Is he above the law at this moment in time? Can we indict him, or does he have to be impeached before we can do that? Thanks.
We have any other who have a question, or we can break and bring more people here. And before that, I can see Dr. Ezekiel Mtua in the house, the MCK CEO. Doctor, welcome on this panel. And if you wish to actually participate and give us your views and advise us, the young people, you can always request for the microphone. Yeah. Otherwise, let's continue to one.
Um, my host, if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, so one message to Dr. Ezekiel Mutua now that I know you are here. I think you have the same message as Raila Odinga to have the dialogue with the president. We are not ready for that. He knows what we want, and he knows what to do. There is no ground for any conversation between us and the president. Thanks.
Okay, so Professor can take over. Professor Eric, the floor is yours.
Hello. Yes. I think I'll answer some, and then Eric can also bring his legal knowledge to bear. Yes, I remember because I was also in that space with the Omtata. Omtata argued that returning officer, according to the minor KI case, returning officers, actually the results are from the polling station, and then in the constituency, the returning officer is able to take the results to the IBC at whatever center, and then IBC is able to announce them, and so he said that even without the commissioners, it is possible to do an election, but I think it's Article 88, subsection 4 or so, which gives the role of the IEBC, the commission itself, in terms of supervising, directing elections, referenda, and all that, registering people, doing all the works. It gives leadership to those. And because all those things have not been done to give way to an election now, because of the IBC has not been in place for a long time, one can have those bottlenecks, and the secretariat alone will be hesitant to actually do those things, because even in terms of who appoints the presiding officers, the returning officers, it's not the secretariat, it is the commission itself. So yes, I can see where the argument is coming from, because truly it is at the polling station where the result really comes from, and then the rest is like addition. But is that the role of the commissions? And therefore, can there be a commission without commissioners? Can the secretariat alone be a commission? And of course, according to the law now, the new law, the entire commission announces the results. The entire commission, not just the chair. They must have concurrence. So I think that is an area for further discussion. And Eric can weigh onto that as well. Can there be a parallel transitional council? You see, this movement, like how I said in Makwene, we had also a people's government, and it was able to, it could do anything, that the government did. It could bring all those ideas, because we thought this is an Article 1 county. So it depends on how the Gen Zs organize themselves, so that through these expresses, through whatever else they create, will be able to continue their advocacy and to continue what they want to do to achieve the result that they want to achieve. And of course, ultimately, whatever decisions are taken, it comes down to how are they enforced. Like now, even what has been considered, how is it enforced? So that there have to be those mechanisms of doing that kind of stuff. And also to protect oneself from being told, now you are doing treason. But of course, when citizens say that we have Article 1 power, and we can, when we delegate authority to you, if you do some of those things like we don't want, and we go to the Ministry of Health and we go to wherever else we go, we withdraw, I think that is what is being contested, and that is something new on the African continent. The impeachment, our president is impeached through parliament. And parliament has the ways of what it must do and what numbers are required and all that kind of stuff. But of course, given the nature of our current parliament, it would not be easy to see how the parliament would be able to take on such a task, even when citizens require it, or when there is reason, especially in terms of how one implements or does not implement the constitution. But I think what you're doing in terms of creating more and more avenues for discussion, and also this thing I suggested about some relying on some technical people in every area that you want to raise a point, whether it is in agriculture, whether it is in law, whether it is whatever, just sourcing information, including even from the diaspora. I think those are important things. And of course, to know that when one wants to change their country fundamentally, it is done. It's a long job. It's a long haul. It is not something to think that you'll do it tomorrow. It takes, particularly when you want to change the institutions, the culture, the policies, the laws, the all works. And that is why, to finalize, I've been very happy to see that the agencies themselves are focusing on even changing themselves in terms of the Kenya that they want. So that if it is, if you do wrong, they criticize you among them, each other. They are persistent. They go to these demonstrations. You don't see the looting by them. You don't see, when they say that people shouldn't be corrupt, you don't see them wanting to do that. There's empathy. They raise money for those who have fallen and those who are unwell. You see, you must, like Mahatma Gandhi said, create within yourselves the society that you want. And I think I can see that happening. And even when people go to those demonstrations, and sometimes it spills a little into during the night, people don't drink, and they don't, the boys don't abuse the girls, they protect them. And it's important for you to create even within yourselves the new society that you want all of us to have. Thank you very much.
Professor, before you go, one more question about the indictment I asked about the president. Can he be charged, or is he above the law?
According to the constitution, if you do anything against the constitution, you cannot be above the law. So it's a question of demonstrating what is it that the president or anybody else has done, which is, because like an impeachment is to get him out, but to get out a president whom, if you think that they have done wrong things, I would imagine, and Eric will also weigh on that. I would imagine that according to our constitution now, you cannot be against, above the law when the things that according to our integrity chapter of the constitution, if there are things that are against the constitution, you can only be protected, like if it's civil things or some criminal or something. When you're in office, you can be protected. But I think when if you fundamentally abuse the constitution, then I don't think there is being above the law.
Guys, I'm in a very noisy place, so at times I might not be able to speak, but I'd like to bring Eric on the space immediately after Professor Eric. Wherever you are ready, kindly, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd actually logged in so that I can just follow the proceedings. And, Professor Kivutha Kibwana is a luminary in terms of uh, leadership, in terms of his well-documented fight and support for constitutionalism in this country. And so I thought that this was a discussion that I wouldn't want to miss. And I logged in for that purpose. But of course, I may just want to say one or two things in terms of some of the questions that have been posed. And I think we may want to begin with the last question that was posed to Professor Kibwana in terms of the immunity that the president enjoys while in office. I think this is one of the issues that the court did make a pronouncement on the BBI case, and several courts have made similar pronouncements. In terms of Article 143 of the Constitution, the president, for the time being, as is in office, enjoys protection, or rather has immunity from any criminal proceedings. And I think if there are any, then they have to await when he gets out of office. And again, he is protected in terms of civil proceedings for anything that he does in the exercise of his powers under the Constitution. And so it becomes extremely difficult to bring a successful case against an existing president for any of the transgressions, be they criminal or civil, while he sits in office. And this also has to be taken into context with jurisprudence that is coming from other countries. Or you may not know that the Supreme Court also, the Supreme Court of the United States did make certain pronouncements with regards to presidential immunity on certain issues touching on their president, or rather their former president, Donald Trump. And so there are all those considerations that have to be taken when anyone wants to institute a certain action. But then again, I think that we should not always be restricted to our local fora. There are other fora in which certain challenges may be made, depending on the nature of claim that one would want to institute, against a sitting president. But that said and done, whichever avenue one seek, because of the nature and profile and stature of the office of the presidency, definitely there will be several legal hurdles that someone has to overcome before they are able to successfully bring such an action. Let me just also say something with regards to the question that is oft posed in terms of the IBC and whether elections can actually be conducted by the returning officers. And I think that the understanding that I have of the Maina Kiai case is that the result is actually at the polling station. And the issue about that is to protect the sanctity of the result and to cure the misadventure that has existed prior, that was highlighted in the Kriegler report, about results changing as they transit from one polling station and go to Nairobi, where ideally was the commission would be best to give the final result, so that it should be final at the polling station, but the finality is with regards to us to cure the aspect of election result manipulation. But if you can, it will be a bit difficult and tenuous also to draw a corollary, in the sense that if the result is at the polling station and that the polling station is under the exclusive control and jurisdiction of the returning officer at that particular level, and for the Senate, the returning officer at the county level, and that therefore, by extension, it would mean that they can then conduct elections. That in itself, I think, is an argument that may not be able to stand in consideration of when you are interpreting certain provisions of the law. You look at the mischief behind the law, so that it is not a more of a lateral interpretation, that if the results is final and is declared by the returning officer, then this returning officer can actually conduct the election. The election, as the courts have often held, is a process, and so there's a long process in terms of voter registration, verification of the voter register, and printing of the ballot papers, clearing of the candidates, and all those processes cannot be undertaken in the absence of the commissioners, because you have to look at it in the sense of the totality. There has to be a vacancy declared. That vacancy, if we are conducting by election, then the vacancy has to be declared, has to be gazetted, and those are things that have to be done by the commission. And so I think that it's an interesting legal argument, but one that may eventually not stand, in view of the fact that there are other processes that are concerned in an election, other than just the actual act of casting a ballot and counting it and declaring it, that cannot be conducted by the returning officers, and has to be, at a collective, be handled by the commissioners, of course, given technical and administrative support by the secretariat. So again, quite a number of cases have dealt with those issues. The Supreme Court, in its latter decision, the one that cleared Ruto in 2022, also looked at that issue and made certain declarations about the commission acting with all the commissioners present. And so those are, again, issues that would, again, create problems for us. When we come to the recall clause that is in the Constitution, in terms of Article 104 of the Constitution, again, we find ourselves in a similar situation where we have the Constitution giving us that right, but we get to that point when you come to sub-Article 2, which says that Parliament needs to enact the legislation that would give the grounds. And then Parliament did so, but sort of, in a way, expanded those grounds in a manner that then defeated the provision that was in the Constitution, and of course that was challenged in court, and the court actually did agree that that section is unconstitutional. So we are left at that place where perhaps we may need again to innovate and to try and see how we deal with that. Ultimately, we now come back to Article 1, which all of us are talking about and agitating, and there is no doubt, absolutely no doubt whatsoever, that power belongs to the people, because that is what Article 1 says, and there's good reason why that is Article 1 of the Constitution. It reaffirms the authority of the Kenyan people, and it goes in line with the constitutional doctrine that all of us have power to govern ourselves, but we donate that power to other entities that we create so that they can exercise it in trust and ensure that all of us are able to get to Canaan. And I remember, the words of Martin Luther King when he was talking about this, and he was basically saying that it's like we have put our money into a bank, and the power that the Constitution then is like a guarantee that every time we ask for our money from the bank, it will never come back unpaid. And so I think that what is happening right now is, I've had quite a number of people talk about the question of trust. I think right now we are saying that basically there appears to be an element of deficiency of trust, and so therefore perhaps a situation has arisen for the people to then exercise their power directly. Again, from a very legal standpoint, that creates a little bit of a challenge, because when you read Article 1, it basically says that although the power belongs to the people, it has to also be exercised in accordance with the Constitution. And then, but there is the aspect of directly, and other people would argue that the aspect of direct exercise of power is at the ballot, and then indirectly through the elected officials and other institutions that are set up within the Constitution for that purpose. And then again, we will look at Article 2 of the Constitution in terms of its supremacy and the argument that may come in that any other action that then appears to be outside the Constitution, or one that usurps the constitutional authority of certain offices, may again be unconstitutional. And of course, for the lawyers, and Kivuta Kibona might be, of course, is probably much more aware of this. There's those discussions about, unconstitutional constitutional change of the Constitution, so that again, we get into an area of diverse legal arguments in terms of how can we be able to do this and do that. But the one thing that I want to say is that I don't think all is lost, because for the first time, I think we have gotten to a point where everyone in this country, and I'm not just talking about the Gen Zs, but everyone in this country has come to actually appreciate that people actually matter, that the views of the people actually matter, that people can actually come together and they can agitate for what is right, and that those who, for political expediency, think that certain things cannot happen. We have really turned a moment in this country where we are almost certain that this is a new era in terms of accountability. And I would want to see this agitation and see whether this agitation can be structured in a way that will then be seeking for greater accountability in terms of how our resources are utilized. If you look at, for example, the reports that have come from the Auditor General, some of the reports that have come from the Controller of Budget, years and years go by, all of them have been highlighting several cases of misuse of resources, but they have never been highlighted as it has been highlighted in this space. And I think that if we can be able to look at it and try and say that, yes, we are where we are in terms of our leadership and in terms of the crisis that we are in, if we can find a mechanisms to sustain this so that there is greater scrutiny and accountability in terms of all the challenges that we are facing. And I say this because, for example, there are people, and I think it's Okiom Tata, who went to court and sought to, to ask the court as a way of us, as a person exercising his sovereign power, to be able to access the SGR contracts and the financing agreements that have been made around the SGR. And eventually, it became a little bit problematic to be able to access that. Now, if you look at that and you look at the reports that have come from the Auditor General in terms of the audit of the public debt, you again see that the Auditor General seems to be suggesting that there are things that are not right in that process, that, there are certain documents that are probably not available for scrutiny, that they're financing certain financing agreements and are not probably up to date. And so I think that a higher level of scrutiny, and people have always said that the price of democracy is, and I paraphrase it, is eternal vigilance. So if we can get to a state of eternal vigilance on everything, so that if you have, for example, a governor who really seeks to do well, but he finds that he has impediments, and you remember, and Professor Kibwana would probably say this, there was a time he had to propose for his county to be dissolved because he couldn't get his way around with his members of the county assembly in terms of the demands that they had on the equitable share that had come in and how much they wanted for the county assembly. And it led to a stalemate, and he took the bold and courageous move of saying, let us dissolve the county assembly so that we dissolve all this so that we can be able to get this done. Of course, eventually things were resolved. And I think that perhaps those are mechanisms as even as we're trying to find, and I want to confess at this time that I have no ready solution or in terms of what we can do, or what the Gen Zs and what everyone, because this is not just a Gen Z issue, it is an issue that touches on all of us, and because we care deeply for this country and we would want to realize the promise that the country has, and we would want to realize that the promise that is in the Constitution for all of us, we probably need to start thinking around those areas and try and ask ourselves, how can we be able to maintain a culture of eternal vigilance, of asking questions, of probing, of demanding accountability, not just within the national government, but also at the county level, so that then we can allow the few that want to do good to actually come out and do good. And I say this because, and then this is in conclusion, because there was a comment that was made about the judiciary. And yes, I have worked with the judiciary, and I know that there are some judicial officers that are really not up to scratch, either in terms of incompetence or because they can easily be accessed and that can make decisions on the basis of other persuasions other than the merit of the case. But they are actually also extremely good judicial officers who have courage and who deliver cases on the basis of the merits of that case, notwithstanding any pressure or intimidation. And I think that we need to get to that point where we can allow those that actually, and their majority, there are so many in so many places in government that actually care about this country, that actually want to do things right, that actually want to exercise their functions with integrity, but the system is so anti-merit. We are all seeing this instance of this guard who was working at, and this is an apt illustration at Java, and who would restrain the police from coming in and getting people, and would open for those, protesters who clearly needed a safe haven. And he was sacked for doing the right thing. And I think that is the service, and perhaps and maybe those are now some of the things that we need to look at ourselves and say, perhaps if we maintain this culture of vigilance, then we can allow those that actually want to do the right thing to thrive, and perhaps that then may bring about the change that we actually want to see in the management of our public offices. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you so much, Eric. We really appreciate for your time being here. And of course, I have a lot of speakers here. So, my speakers, I'll give this opportunity to my co-host to enable me moderate. Whoever has a question to Eric, you can pose the question. My co-host, kindly proceed.
Alafu
Kenyan lady, are you
guys,
there?
before we proceed
Oh,
with
sorry.
the questions, yeah.
Sorry, I think
So
I think I
guys,
was muted.
yes, guys, before we proceed with the issue to do with the questions, I'll also kindly remind you guys on the issue to do with the data support. Kuna hiyo namba yenye iko pinned hapo, so guys kindly kidogo tu 2050 ndio tuweze kusupport Marvin akiendelea kutuhost hapo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think actually you are the one who was causing the the echo. So those of us that are on the panel, if you have not raised your questions, kindly raise your hand, and then we can direct our questions so that we'll be able to leave the panel and allow others to speak. If you could go ahead and ask your questions. Chege, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Kenyan lady. Eric, a pleasure to have you here. You've analyzed the issue of the constitution quite well. I'm thinking about the trust deficit that is clearly there, and if I can be brutally honest, the leaderless movement is partly inspired by this trust deficit, but also on the knowledge that in the past, leaders are identified to be corrupted, to be abducted, to be killed, to disappear, so that you can scatter the movement. And I think of someone like Okia Umtata and his struggles for democracy, and him exercising his constitutional duty as the sovereign to take cases to court and to put parliament to task, or rather the judiciary to task over things that parliament maybe has passed. And it begs the question why the Law Society of Kenya, for example, is not that champion for Kenya. We've had occasions in the past where people like Bishop Ndingi Mwananzeki, Reverend Njoya were champions of law and order and constitutionalism. And now, if you put all that in perspective and look at the Cherera 4 and Chebukati, and now these bombast discussions that have led to what we saw today that Raila is now together with his brigade standing next to Ruto, and they are making the announcement, and we have now 5 commissioners who are going to be elected by the political class, and all this we know very well is an attempt to make sure that the announcement of who is going to be president will be somehow controlled by the political class. And then if we take a look at, for example, the US, there is no commissioner, there is no chairman who announces. If it is an arithmetic thing, why not take it completely away from the commissioners, and we say, since the minor KI decision was made, what is done at the polling station and by the is it the presiding officer, I think, is at the polling station, and then the returning officer who is at the constituency, whatever he announces, we have media stations in each and every of those stations, and let the media call, just like the Americans call it, and if there is an issue, go to court. For me, this necessity, I agree with you that elections are a process, and therefore the commissioners are important for the process, to supervise the process, to appoint returning officers. We saw in Embakasi a returning officer being shot. So yes, for that purpose they are required, but for this importance that is put on the chairman of the commission, surely with everything that we have seen, with what we are going through right now, whereby things are being held on spaces, why are we going around in circles as if we do not understand what is going on? Gen Zs might be naive to some of these things. They are not. I don't think they are, because they're asking fantastic questions. But surely, you being a former chairman of the LSK and other chairman emeritus and attorney generals emeritus and all these lawyers that we have, justices emeritus, surely you guys are failing the country by not speaking out, by not being the champions of this kind of thing. And so for me, I really would love to hear a more powerful, a more stronger opinion from your side and advice, so that you can help us navigate through that. Number 2 would be this issue of the conflict of interest laws. I really hope you guys are taking time. Professor has advised us that we should be having breakout rooms where we discuss some of these things. Prof, I was thinking as you were speaking that we have institutions in this country whose job it is to make sure that there is Hansards and things are captured in a way that is going to be made into laws. These discussions for me are very vibrant. They are very useful. Surely, Law Society of Kenya, Parliamentary Service Commission, wasikae hapo wakifikiria kazi yao ni kuongezea wabunge pesa. All these things need to be, we need to find a way of bringing them here. They are paid salaries to do this. The sovereign is calling you. By the way, we are the employer. The sovereign is calling you to come and take those Hansards and take those. The clerk of the National Assembly, they are inserting people here to investigate us and to block our systems. Can they be useful at least to these conversations and to be listening to the Gen Zs and to make sure that the things are captured in a way that makes sense and in a way that it comes through in society? Kenyan lady, I've seen Justice here. I think we need voices of the ladies as well. There is other people who haven't spoken. Kings Karibu, I'd seen your comment earlier. I was trying to communicate with KOT so that you can come on. Please, guys, put your hands up. Guys who are listeners, please come up. Dr. Ezekiel, come up. We want to hear from you people who at least we trust and we respect.
Justice Makonyango, are you able to speak to us?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. I just wanted to ask anybody who's currently at the parliament today if they can share with us the details of the NADCO reports, because I'm trying to find it online. I can't find it, but it seems to be a very important document as far as youths and development in Kenya is concerned. Dr. Kivuta Kibwana, do you have an idea?
Let's kindly, sorry, let's go to Professor so that you can answer all the questions. Professor's hand is up.
No, I think the NADCO report, one can just access it by Google. It has been there for a long time.
Professor 001, and then it's gonna be Jamal next, and then Kings, in that order.
Okay, let me, I was drafting something. Let me finish drafting it, then I will get back to you guys, kindly.
All right. Jamal, could you kindly go ahead?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Also, thank you
By the
to
way, Kaganidi, as Jamal goes, sorry, Jamal, can you just check if Eric Theory is still there? I think he's dropped from the speaker panel.
and thank you to the Professor Kivuta Kibwana for his rich input, and Eric, former LSK president. Recently, when the Deputy President gave a press conference in Mombasa, there is one question that he posed. He posed the question, where did the rain start beating us, or something along that line? And unfortunately, he had narrowed it down to the current government that he is serving in. So he thought that by the time they were coming in after the elections, they were the darling of the country, and 2 years later, they lost the political goodwill from the masses. But I wish he had given us the answer where the rain started beating us. And let me now put in my thoughts on what I think is the answer to that question. And the answer to that question, in my opinion, is the rain started pouring on us during colonialism and immediately after. Because what happened is we agitated at that time against an occupation, against imperial colonial power from Great Britain, who came and occupied and looted and taken everything, killed, did everything that our current government is doing to us. But then you will realize the process out of that situation, while there were people who went to the forest to fight because they knew you cannot negotiate with the enemy, because the enemy does not understand the language of win-win. The enemy is there to take it all. And in the words of Malcolm X one time said, how it is not possible to sit down with the then white people, because the white people were more or less colonizing the blacks in the Americas. And he said there is nothing to talk about because these people cannot give up what they have. It is the system that gives them all that they have. Then how is it they will just give it up? It's impossible. So what we did is then during the colonial period, we went to Lancaster, we gave a few names here and there whom they had a hand in. At Lancaster, they negotiated. But what they ended up negotiating, the colonial power, is so one by one you go through, they say, no, this one we can't have. If you insist on this, then there is no independence. And we know the outcome of that. The outcome of that then was that the whites were changed with blacks who were occupiers because the system went on. The new black leadership went on with the looting. Now they were in competition with the white man to get, if it is land, if it is wealth, they grab it here. By the time the Mau Mau came back, hoping to find the land that was taken away from them, there was nothing because it is the chief and the new guys in town who took it all. I have friends here in Kiambu who tell me that they know the time when their grandfathers were alive. They say, that place was my grandfather's farm and his household. But we can't access it because now the new guys took it over. Of course, it is a father generation who are currently occupying. So bring it forward to during Moi, during Kibaki, Uhuru, and of course the current president. So the thing is, we cannot isolate or be selective. We have to approach this because this is an opportunity in this country that has never presented itself. I think the closest we came to this was during the agitation by back in the day of Professor Kivuza Kibwana and other activists, Orengo and the likes then. Uh, but we only came close to it. We never achieved it. For us to achieve this, then it means we must change our mindset. Because the major issue that we have in our country and within ourselves is our mindsets. We have all believed that the solution is not with us. The solution has to be copied from somewhere else. That is why you see everyone speaking will always give you the example in the US, in the UK, in the where, in the here, because we believe the white man has the solution. Then why did we need to uproot the white man from here if we don't have the solutions? It's a mindset problem. If you look at the younger generation currently agitating and doing this, and we all generally, before I say that, generally in this country also, the people who agitate are the ones who do not have an opportunity at the table. Over the years, it has been like that. All elections, whether someone won by merit or they rigged themselves in, the other side will always agitate because they are not at the table. The minute an opportunity or a window is offered for them to sit at the table, then it's all okay. Uh, we have seen, sorry to say, Baba, for example, when Uhuru allowed him to come and sit and eat with him at the table, he forgot about everything. And Uhuru, what did he do? The damage that he did to this country, the last 5 years that he was in power. Uh, Ruto, who was, of course, part of the previous regime, only that he was pushed aside for the last term under Uhuru, when he came in, whether legitimately or he was rigged in, again, the agitation of the other side. But the minute they are allowed to sit at the table, all is good. So the question then we need to ask ourselves is, as a country, what exactly is the problem? The problem can't be the personalities because the personalities can, many have left the political scene, but nothing has really changed. The game is the same. It means there is a problem with society. It means this form of democracy that we have copied from elsewhere cannot really bring out any real change. It can only bring out eloquent speakers who will promise heaven, deliver nothing. In 5 years' time, they'll find another narrative that they will rally us around. They find us an enemy, whether it is the ethnic card, whether it is the class card, whatever it is, and then immediately they come in. They have to continue with what they have inherited. Where does that place us? That places us. Are we culpable? Are we part of the gears that allow this to happen? Or are we bystanders? Are we victims or as we purport to be? In my opinion, I don't think we are bystanders. I don't think we are victims. I think we are part of the problem. So then, if we accept that, if we accept that we are part of the problem, then what do we do? That is the major question. Uh, we could have quick fixes by removing this politician and that politician in the short term. But if the game is the same, because it is a systemic game, then will it really matter? Because we have seen many good people who have been given an opportunity, they have come into the political scene, and you can't recognize them a short while later. And in my opinion, it is the system. Unless we fix our form of democracy, unless we come together honestly and say there is a problem with the white man's form of democracy. Because when you study the so-called the US and all these countries, they are as corrupt as this country. It's just that they have so much, and they have better cover up, and the system is deeper than ours. Really, nothing can come to, because it is a system that is older than most of us, 500, 600 years. The British is many, maybe 1,000 years. So then, what is the way forward? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. Is the way forward? Uh, do we then pressure the government in terms of we have outcomes that we must get in the short term, then we enumerate them, then we say we are pushing this agenda as a country, then we put a bit of pressure, and hopefully, like this current guy has done, at least he's able to listen here and there, and he's really conceding ground. Then do we go on like that, or do we bring it down altogether? And this is dangerous, because we must also look at countries around us who brought down regimes because they felt they're bad. 40 years later, they're in the wilderness, and I'm sure the wilderness is far much worse than the current form. So then, I think, in my opinion, what we need to do is we need to organize properly. We need to allow professionals to guide this, and we need people to, if given opportunity to guide this, push or pressure on government, they make a public commitment that they will not benefit out of this at personal level. That commitment is made. The commitment can go in as far as even saying they will also not, because they'll become popular in this country, they will not even contest for positions in the next election. Because in this country, again, it is very easy to win elections by just pushing a narrative, and you trend here and there. The rest is now you pay influencers. All of a sudden, you are this angel. Then you lose your mind. But if you know from the beginning, you will not benefit out of this. You are doing it for the country. You are doing it for the next generation, and you will do your bit, and you step back. I think such kind of a leadership can take us to some extent forward. They can guide, and then we can do piecemeal reforms here and there, here and there, here and there, until we arrive in Canada. Because I don't think also it is easy to fix really this country in one instant. It is not, because the whole country is part of the problem, and we cannot get rid of all of us. So it means then we first have to accept, like they say, when you go to a psychiatrist, the first step is for you to accept that there is a problem. If you're an alcoholic, then step by step you take it forward like that. In so many words, what I'm trying to say is, number one, let us look inward for solutions, the right solutions, without copying anyone. Pragmatic solutions, adaptive solutions that will cure specific issues in society. Conflict of interest is one. People, putting their children in positions of power, and this is not a kingdom. People who have very dirty background have an opportunity today to tell us, simply because they are not at the table, that this should have been the right thing to do. They can't be part of that solution. So if someone has a shoddy background, we just shun them. We ask fresh guys, professionals, young ones, 35, 30, 29, or even a 20-year-old can still think, of course, with guidance from older people within the group. Then step by step like that, I think if we are honest with ourselves, then we can fix the country. And the fix has to be slow and has to be painful. We must be willing to bear the pain. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. I do see Professor Kivuda and I see Eric on the request. Are you able to request the mic so that I can let you back on the panel? And I think I will need to drop off a few people. Professor 001, please go ahead as I try to get Professor Kivuda and Eric back in. Please go ahead.
So I just wanted to add, I just wanted to add some points basing my argument from the previous speaker. Actually, in as much as the tunataka kuwin, you guys tunapaswa at least we have a strategy. Manake I've been of late nimekuwa nikinotice ya kwamba kama size I guess I'm not wrong, kuna some spaces pia zinaendelea, so we need just to have a unity and ile unity ikuwe driven with the one agenda. So si ati hapa tayari kuna court kuna Marvin hapa kuna space yake, ukienda hivi unapata kuna mwingine na yeye anaitwa bla bla, labda tuseme John akona space yake. So we need to have one space, we should all be driven with one agenda in as much as tunataka kuwin hii war. Remember now we are fighting the enemy saizi ni our allies, the political allies ambao tumeweza kuona leo wote, of which leo amejitokeza wote, and tumeweza kuona even the people that we were thinking of wanaweza tusaidia, the kind of people like Baba, of which I voted for Baba. Mi sikuvotia this motherfucker by the name Ruto. So in as much as tunataka kuwin, let's have one agenda, one goal, and in order to accomplish your goal pia tukue na unity amongst us. Without unity guys hatuwezi. Ndio utapata watu wengine nao pia they are being paid by the government, so it's like now the government, they are compromising us, so they want to make that unity, ile unity yani ipotee tu bure yani. So pia tukiwa tuna fight hivi, tukiwa tunaandamana pia hivi, hata wewe pia ukitumiwa pesa na serikali pia jaribu kujiuliza maswali, jiulize Rex ako wapi, jiulize maswali, Rex ako wapi? So these are kind of a question. Na pia si basing also my argument pia tuangalie pia taswira ya wale the freedom fighters, those who fought for our independence, those who fought for liberating us from ile utawala ya mzungu, and the so-called kina Ruto ambao sasa we are fighting them. We want to liberate ourselves from their utawala. So guys, let's unite, let's focus. Tuseme kama ni wiki niliona Eric Omondi amecome up na strategy ya occupy State House on Thursday. If at all Eric Omondi is serious with what he's planning to do on Thursday, let's back him up, tumback up kidogo pia sisi at least, so tusikue ati kuna division among us, we Gen Z. We are Gen Z. Leo nimeona Senator Omtata amenyimwa nafasi pale kwa Senate kuwasilisha hoja zake. So I wonder where we are heading as a country. This is a country whereby tunarudishwa kwa utawala wa Moi by this dude by the name Ruto. So guys, let's stand, let's have a goal. Mi nilikuwa nataka kuback huyu the former, sijajua jina, but mwenye ametoka kuongea, the previous speaker actually make points ambazo ni nzuri sana. Let's have unity. And also I had also suggested something that tuweza fanya hivi, we can also decide and maybe form a transitional council yenye pia itakuwa na Gen Z hapo, itakuwa na activists hapo, itakuwa na people from the civic society hapo, na kama tutaweza pia we can also kuweka religious leaders hapo kidogo, wale ambao wako mind zao zina read venye sisi zina read. So with this transitional council inaweza at least work in parallel na hii government. Hiyo ni kupeleka tu kuangalia government, kuiaudit, in short, kuangalia, kuiweka on check government, vitu zenye inafanya, vitu kama hizo. So kwa watu kama kina Murkomen, watu kama hawa kina na Kumicha, we can bring them on board. Hata tukiendelea hivyo, also I was also suggesting that we should also start fighting these people invading their offices, our ma MPs, instead of recalling them. Nimesikia profesa hapa Kivutha ameongea mambo na IBC and also we cannot trust this government to apatio task ya kuconstitute mambo na IBC. We cannot trust these people, manake they will end up messing, they will end up compromising kila mtu. And I'm also 100% sure that they'll also end up kutuwekea watu ambao tunawakataa, watu ambao pia ndio watatusumbua hapo when it comes ile period ya election. So guys, let's continue, na pia just to add on, tuendelee pia kusupport hapo Marvin kwa mambo na hiyo data, manake unajua anatuhost na anatumia bundles, atumii wifi like some of us. So let's check on that. This is a professor from Mombasa County 001. Thank you guys.
Yeah, I have sent an invite to you, Professor Kivutha, and Mr. Eric Theuri. I have sent you speakers. I've sent you the mic. Just accept the mic so that you can come in and respond to the questions. I hope you're taking a record of them. Yeah, but just check. I've sent you both the mic because for some reason I'm not seeing your request. As they do that, may we have Derek go next and then Kings? Thank you.
So just before Eric goes, guys, if you really want to speak, you can DM me. You can send me a message in my inbox because I'm not able to see most of your requests. So I'll send you the speaker's invite manually. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kenyan lady, for the chance. Yeah, I also want to add, like, what do we do next as the struggle continues? I think above it all, sensitization and education to, like, those rural people, Kenyan people in the rural areas who don't understand even what is happening, can create, like, things to educate them, because as long as the young people in the cities and people are educated or who know how to use technology are participating in the struggle, we also need, like, the people in rural areas, and we need, like, all Kenyans, so that the struggle becomes uniform, so that it becomes about Kenya, not a certain section of Kenyans. You know, most unlearned or uneducated Kenyans always blame the educated ones, like they're the one who are taking us to the ditch. And partly it is sad and true, but mostly it's because of the conflict of interest that many people have. So if we as the educated, as people now choose technology, can do some sensitization, show those people that are uneducated or those that are illiterate, we show them that we are together, that this struggle, either they understand or not, they are a part of it. And we are coming to this space so that we can make Kenya better, not just for us, but also for all of them. I think even William Ruto can be convinced by us that we want to make Kenya better even for him and his family. But if you look around, the question that is really being posed is a political question. That's why you see even His Excellency is a little bit timid, a little bit taking steps back and being humble and even listening to us. It's because we are raising a kind of a political question that how will Kenya be governed? Who should govern Kenya? Under which circumstances and under which provisions should Kenya be ruled? You know, we are pushing a political, I think that is becoming slowly political. But yet at the same time you see a lot of Gen Z and even millennials don't understand the political space. And even if you look at politics in its nature, it's not something that is definite or something that is known exactly, like all the way from Plato to Karl Marx. They have tried to really talk about politics and its dynamics, even Aristotle, but it's that hard that even the best brains in the world that has ever existed find it hard to ponder on. So as we think about what next, we should not forget that the political part, although we are asking for development and change and liberation, but Kenya will not end. We'll still need a president. We'll still need a political system that will always be there and has always been there whenever human beings come together or whenever human beings are trying to be governed. Yeah. My other point is as we try to make Kenya better, let us not also, as Gen Z, create enemies. You know, let not it look like some people are our enemies. Yet we are changing this country to become good for everyone. How can someone, a Kenyan or someone in Kenya, feel like this movement is our enemy? You see, the people have been killed, the people have been in prison, the people have been put behind bars. There are so many that we find it weird that some people in the political and also the technocrats in government feel like this movement is our enemy. Even some people here on social media feel like this movement is our enemy. The business people of Nairobi are feeling like this movement is our enemy also. But we need to find a way that, you know, the game of politics or political games and games done by government and state officials are always dirty. So if we can make ourselves get a way that is clean, that doesn't put anyone against us, or even if it puts the majority of Kenyans on our side, it will be safe for us. Yeah, so I think educating our people in rural areas, trying to build a good rapport with everyone are the things that we really need so as to make the movement alive and to exist even for years. For years, like many people even remember many people remember Mau Mau and their struggle, things that happened long time ago, or Coyote and the struggle. People remember so many things, Nelson Mandela, things that happened long time ago. If something was to have a lifetime impact, then it must be made in a way that it is simple and understandable by everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Kenyan lady now. I'm the person to go next.
Yes, that is Kings, correct?
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead, and then we will welcome back Professor Kivuda and Eric to respond. I think that's a long chain of response they have. Go ahead, please.
I've seen also Kabando has joined us. Kabando, please, if you can mute your mic so that maybe if there are any interruption from your end, it won't affect the speakers that are on session. Kabando, if you can mute, please. Okay. Now, mine will just be first of all to thank you, KOT, for this space, Kenyan lady for being the co-host. and then Kivutha Kibwana for pumping in knowledge to us in terms of constitutionalism and understanding things from the legal perspective, and also Eric Theory. Thank you for your time and being committal to this space. Responding to most of to the speakers that have come before me, I think the discourse at hand goes way before even the current political class that we are trying to fight with. One of it being that if you go back in history and then you go back to the church, remember the Catholic Church has been one of the key cornerstones, and they have also played a very big role in terms of development of politics. And way before, when the Catholic Church was starting at the Catholic in the Vatican in Italy, there is a way the church was fundraising, raising funds. And this goes back to what they used to call churches the Catholic Church at that time used to raise money through something that is called, they used to collect indulgences. So indulgences were a form of, like, the church had put a tax into people committing crimes. So, for example, if you go and steal from someone, then the church will be able to, like, put crimes in terms of their grievance or the magnitude, and then you'll pay a certain tax to the church. And then that led on to people now saying that even if I commit a crime, and then on this day of the week, if I go to the church and pay according to the crime that I've committed, then my sins are sanctified. Then I can go back and continue doing what I do. So this has gone all the way from that time. Politics became part of the church. And then now these two are intertwined. And you saw the other day, after the maandamano of, I think, a week before this one, the president, the people he called to State House, he never called people who are really afflicted by the current discourse in the country. He called the clergies, because society has found it as a manner of if you want to inflict injury to the people, then once you do that, you involve the church. And remember also, this current regime came into power around 80-99% through pretense that they are these sanctified kind of people who are, like, fear the word of God so much, and then they'll come and undo whatever had been done by that time by the person they used to call that is it Mogoroki, and then there's a name they used to call Raila, that this person does not believe in Christianity. So basically, our problems as a society have been chronic in terms of, first of all, you cannot complain because naturally you are told that now leaders are chosen by God, but really God does not choose for you leaders. You choose your leaders, you yourselves. We chose Ruto. The people of Kenya chose Ruto. God never chose Ruto for you. But it is true also that leaders are a reflection of the people, because people are so corrupt in this country. People are so much we are kind of this society whereby it's like it's a wheeler dealer kind of economy, whereby, because I know this person, then when this person gets into power, then I can be able to get this I can be allocated this section of in this sector, let's say in energy, I can be able to get these tenders. When it comes to maybe construction or infrastructure, I can be able to get this much because I also know this person. And because I also know this person is corrupt, then I know if it is someone that if I give them something, then I'll be able to amass so much wealth through the system that we the people have elected. So let's now, as a people, start demystifying the notion that goes around that our leaders are elected by God. No, God gave you the ability to elect someone, even Satan is not involved in this process. We the people, if our leader is so bad, then it speaks to us, the electorals. It is a vindication of who we are as a people. So Ruto represents 50% of the Kenyan country. So whoever he is us. So as we are fighting this and going forward, marching on for this, is it fifth or fourth liberation of this country, we should also come with clean hands. That is why I've been advocating for the way this thing is organic, let it continue being organic. The other day on the Spaces on Sunday, Okia spoke about our problem as a country is not about who is leading us. We can even put tunaweza weka kondoo. We can put anything to be our president, as long as us the people accept to follow the law, to abide by the law, to abide by our constitution. Once we do that, then it doesn't matter who becomes a president. It won't even affect your day-to-day operations, because the systems are working, the laws are working, people are following. If it is the right channels of procurement, you will know, as long as I've organized my house as an entity, if I apply for this tender and these are the criterias, and they are also not incriminative, they are fair to everyone, then I can be able to win that tender. I do not need to know anyone. The same way Kenyan has been done, and people are so like pulling back on it. They were negative about it not working, but I think that is one of the parastatals in Kenya, whereby if they float a tender, you go to the system, put your prices, you get it, you don't get it. Life goes on. So let's make systems work. Our problem is not even the person that is on top. Our problem is about the kind of culture that us as a people have adopted, to an extent that you will always feel comfortable when a person of your ilk is the one who is in charge of government at that time. And also now they have been able to divide us into these tribal cocoons, whereby it is this region that is coming together with this region. The way our deputy president is so obsessed with Watu wa Mulima. That guy, that he talks, he drinks, he walks, all his mind is Watu wa Mulima. Because the politics he has learned since he was a young man was tribal politics. He knows, for the only way that I can ascend to power is to harness our community as 5 million Kikuyus, and then we go for this position. But now, come to the reality on the ground in 2024, the finance bill affects all of us, regardless of which region of this country you come from. Whether you come from Central, you come from Rift Valley, you come from Nyanza, the finance bill affects you equally. So, and then this movement is also rattling them in a manner that now they cannot go in the evening. Raila cannot go and call back his people. Kalonzo cannot go and call Kambas. The deputy president cannot go and call back his Kikuyu people. The president himself also cannot go back to his Kalenjin community and say, now, it is this group that is against me. People have realized that no, for the last 30, 40 years, our politics have been elitism politics, whereby our politics is about certain characters. Kalonzo was there in 1992 during multi-party. Raila was there in 1992, plus his father during multi-party fight. Martha Karua was there. Kinama DVD were there. Who else was there in that panel today? Ruto was there against multipartyism when they formed the KY 1992 with Akina Jirongo. So if you look at the picture that was receiving that, I don't know, IBC something, these are the same people that have been in our political space for the last 30 years. In the last 3 years, the UK has had, I think, in 2 years, they have had, now this is the third prime minister, and life goes on. our politics are so it's which word should I use? It's a cult of personalities. Like me, I'm a Ruto guy. Me, I'm a Raila guy. Me, I'm this guy, and that is where our problems emanate. The highest position in the country should be so useless that anyone can occupy it without you knowing, and your life goes on. It cannot be that after every 5 Kenya, by the way, you work only for 4 years. As business people, you plan your business or how you're gonna make your money between the first year. Actually, the first year when the president comes in, they are in this charlatan of who is taking this, who is getting this, who is getting this, who is getting to cabinet, who is my person. So the whole of the first year when the government gets into power is wasted in them deciding who will get a piece of the cake. So you will work only for 3 years. The last year of whoever is in power, now they are talking about election. So for every cycle of 5 years, you only have 3 years of working. The other 2 are wasted in politics. And we've been acclimatized now into that has become our cycle. And that is why we keep on saying there are no jobs, there are no this. Because this country does not give you space even to work. It doesn't even give you space to breathe and plan your things. You cannot plan your business. You cannot even sit down with investors and tell them that I'm thinking that whatever we are planning to do will go beyond this regime. Everyone will be like, Apana.
You wanna sum it up?
Sorry? Yeah, I'm almost. I'm about to land.
Okay, and then
So
followed by Derek, and then now we can welcome Professor. Thank you. I'm sorry.
no problem. So my point is, as we are having this discourse, we should ask ourselves first, at the end of the day, who are we as a person? Are you here for a better future? Are you looking at this country like if you say like if I look into the future, in the next 5, 10, 20 years, will my kids prosper in this economy? If then they won't, if you are not aligned to a certain political class that is at that time, then we won't go far. So my final remarks will be, Professor, and also I've seen something going around about this formation of the task force and all that, because you are part of the constitution. Why is it that IEBC is so much inclined to president in this? The president has to decide who is coming into the panel. He also has to pick this list. Why can't we have this thing done by people who are not even interested with politics? They just they are given the KPIs, and this person needs to have this qualification and this, and they elect someone who is not who won't come and feel like I'm here because of President XYZ. So that's my final submission. Thank you so much, Kenyan lady, and thank you, Coyote.
Thank you, Derek. Would you make it quick, please?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's just an addition to what I was saying, because I had someone say the problem started from the British system that we inherited after independence. And the answer to that has been given severally, like decolonize, like all the way from Bob Marley's time, like free our mind from mental slavery. Currently, people are talking about decolonizing even agriculture and all aspects of the economy, like moving literally away from how the white man taught us and doing things as we Africans think about it or have thought is best. Even some people argue like some kind of leaders who are dictators around the world have better economies than democratic leaders. Maybe we as Kenyans should also think who is the best person that should lead us, which is the best system. And as young people and innovative as Kenyans we are, we can come up with systems that can work even better, because these are the things that I think even the president is asking. How do you want us to do it? Which system have you thought about it to do it? And as we think about it, I think we should really think from our African point of view, so that we don't depend on the system of the colonizer. There was a book written recently by some author. The book was titled "The Revolution Will Not Be Financed." Even recently, when the Gen Z were demonstrating in the streets, the question of financing came up. Who is the one giving them money? Because if they knew if it's really coming from their hearts, they will win the revolution. And that is why partly we have won the revolution and we are still continuing. It must come from our heart. It must come from our system. It must come from our thoughts. Something that will make Kenya better must look like that. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Miriam, would you please go ahead?
Thank you for the mic. Thank you, guys. So I'll be quick as well. I want to say a few things. So I have been attending these spaces for quite faithfully since all this began. And considering I'm not into politics, this has been a first for me. And every time I've gotten a chance to speak, I have been agitating for action so that we don't keep regurgitating things and doing nothing. And I'm pleasantly I'm happy that we have been receiving a lot of action oriented talks, and I want to thank my seniors for that. But now today, the reason I was inspired to speak was listening to Professor Kivuda and my senior Eric. I started feeling how I used to feel when I was in GHC class in primary school or in Mensihanya's class. And why I say this, and I might sound like the devil's advocate, but hear me out. We might be like 1,500 of us, but maybe I would be speaking for maybe 500 or maybe just for myself when I say that how I used to feel those days was change was never gonna come because it looked like it was so far-fetched. There was so much to do. There was so many hurdles to cross. And that's the same feeling I had today. And I'm like, I hope no one else is feeling as I'm feeling, like defeatist or defeated, like, oh my God, there's so much to read. There's so much to understand, to taifika. So I guess what I'm saying is I hope what I would prefer, the solution that I'm offering is for the experts, the lawyers, the Kina Prof, Kina Eric, to do their thing so that the rest of us can continue just agitating and do what we do best, which is retweet and tweet for the Gen Zs to TikTok and dance and keep pushing for the agenda. Because I hope we don't get drawn into all that work that needs to go into these things that experts can do, like guys who can go to courts, let them go to courts, and then now we will follow and rally behind them and continue agitating. For the people who can go to Mandamano, let's also do that. Division of labor and specialization, for lack of a better word, because I would really hate for all these lessons that we are learning to also put out the fire. And I'm maybe speaking for just myself, but I hope I speak for one other person. So division of labor and specialization. The second thing I wanted to say was about mainstream media. I've noticed, and I keep saying this, that when I talk to people on this village, the market, the Makangas and the Deres, I notice that we speak completely different languages. Here on Twitter, we are very few people. The majority are outside Twitter or the social media. So I feel like I don't know whether this can be done where we bring in social media and they also pledge allegiance to this movement. Because every time I have been speaking to these people, it's like the message that's being passed on by mainstream media can easily be misconstrued. So we need to get them to be able to send the right message, right, quote unquote, the message in a clear manner, the way we want it sent out. Then the second way is for us to also not take this initiative for granted and not assume that people outside this social media are seeing things the same way we are seeing with us from the same perspective as we are. Most people aren't, guys. So we need to not overestimate the power that we have or the tool of social media, and we need to start actively planting seeds in the people outside social media, because these seeds, we might need these trees, the seeds, to grow by 2027. We will really truly need these people. And finally, so that's civic education. Yeah, everyone needs to take part. And then the mainstream media, if there's a way we can merge the two so that we speak a common language. It's a very thin line. It's a very thin line when I talk to someone and they're like, oh, but si mlipewa alitikia kusign finance bill, mnataka nini tena? And that is a wave that spreads across like a group of people outside social media. So there's actually work to be done. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please allow me to hand the mic to Professor Kivutha Kibwana, Mr. Deuri, and I think Kabando is here. Please go ahead and give us your wisdom. Can y'all hear me?
Oh, me, Kabando?
Yeah, so Professor Kivutha and then Eric and then Mr. Kabando. Whichever way you come in, speak to us.
Okay, this Kabando, I just want to say just a few things. A message of commendation to the movement pioneers, Gen Z, and obviously allied closely with their millennials, to say that this is a very unique historic moment. The issues that have been raised by this movement are very bold. In fact, since 1990, when we had the clamor for a multi-party democracy, removing Section 2A of the then Constitution, it is not about political power for a person or a group, but new leadership dispensation. So it is very, very unique. There are no ethnic hang-ups, as we have seen. It is evident that there are issues driven. This is necessary, and it makes the movement legit. Also, the movement issues are very clear. They are very well communicated. They are not sourced from a certain political corner with prejudice or with ownership and excluding others. Therefore, making the grievances very genuine and inclusive. The dialogue, some of us have been around for some time, that is being called between Ruto and his new political cohorts, is evidently a result of underhand deals. It is similar to, the precursor handshake, or then, the cooperation under Moi that led to merger or cohabitation for the chosen political elite, which, without a doubt, and I say this loudly, without a doubt, goes with the material rewards and some, contractual arrangements and the people being facilitated to do those political rounds. So, fortunately, this round, this season, this time, the Gen Z and millennials are making this wave to have power that, from what I've seen circulating in the social media this afternoon, it is making this deception, this latest deception that was happening at KICC, illegitimate ab initio from the very start. Now, what's the way forward in a view of a parent of a Gen Z and the millennials is that you are liberating generations, not just yours. I have been to my village, I've been to the suburbs and to the CBD. I'm yet to meet a single person, and this I can say, and I can even swear, that I have not met a single person who has condemned this movement. Even individuals who otherwise are very cozy and very, attached to the status quo, people who transfer or who transit their allegiance and loyalties from one camp to the other, depending on who is calling shots and who is driving the levers of political power that offers material benefits. I have not met one single person. And we had a discussion on Saturday and again yesterday evening with some peers, some friends. And you are saying, for the first time, nobody is condemning, nobody is angry. And we are saying, can you go forward? Therefore, we are saying the movement owners, the tribeless, the fearless, the faithless, Gen Zs and your allies, the millennials, remain steadfast, you are gallant, You have our unequivocal blessings. We truly, honestly are so buoyed, very inspired, and very proud of you. No selfish, covert dialogue seems to have a chance now. I can say that you are the Malcolm X of your time, the Steve Bikos, the Dedan Kimathis, the Mentakilili, and others who have, Akina Sankaras, who pioneered their time at your age. Step forward, and we are also ready to step forward to continue blessing you on your gallant, patriotic journey to bring a new dispensation. Kindly don't drop your guard. Stick on demands for drastic, radical reforms, including, for instance, full implementation of the Crow report that was documented under the guidance of John Gedongo, 200304, that made him being ostracized by the regime then. And also the Dongo report that shows the grabbing of Kenya by individuals and by institutions, publishing of the debt register, and dissolution of Ruto's government. You are winning. Everything that Ruto has said or done in the last few days is because of what you have done. Despite the violence, despite the kidnappings, the abductions, the maiming, the deaths, you are winning. No retreat. You got our backs in all ways possible. You are inspiring all and sundry. This is your moment. Don't drop the torch. Be the torch bearers that you are already. And we say to you, kudos, God bless you. Asante sana.
Loud and clear. Thank you very much, Honorable Kabando. Dr. Kivutha Kibwana, would you kindly go ahead?
Yes, and I want also to thank Kabando. We come a long ways. I was Dean of the Faculty of Law when he was the student leader, and they put him into a lot of problems then. And so I'm happy to share. I'm happy to share this space with him and for the words that he has said. And I think he mentioned the name of John Gitongo in terms of anti-corruption measures. John Gitongo is one of the experts in the country. He has a long history of working with the Transparency International, and that's somebody whom the Gen Zs can rely on to get information about anti-corruption strategies. Let me also repeat something that Jamal, I think, said. He gave us a history of how, this problem that we have today is long drawn from colonial times. And even when today we talk about ethnic parties, ethnic-based parties, this is something that was planted during colonialism, because up to 1960, they only allowed district political parties. The KANU was the first national party when now they had decided they were going to give Kenya flag independence. So I think that's a very important point to underscore, to say that it is really issues that are about most facets of our society, which have roots from the colonial times coming into independence. And therefore, it's really what is being sought is like an overhaul of the system, and that is why it is not normally easy to do that kind of thing, and that is why it's a question of asking what is the best system. Yes, there is the Constitution, but you see, the Constitution to be given life requires, why would you have parastatals and those statutory bodies and so on? What do they do? Do they take money which they shouldn't be taking? And so you look at the entire system so that you can say that this system must be overhauled, must be revamped, so that it is citizen sympathetic or citizen friendly. And that is why it is always difficult, because there are people who will resist a system that has been giving them economic advantage, from the international level, from the national level, from even now local levels in the counties and so on. So I think that is what Gen Zs must know they are up against. So it's not just a quick fix. It is something that requires a lot of changes, and with time, changes in the culture of how we do our things. And that is why whatever you plan, you must have staying power. Because if you think it will happen in 1 year, you think that you'll get all these changes in 2 years. I think it's getting the structures that you will have, so that this is a continuous thing. Even if you were to get new people that you think are good, there must be ton of vigilance, because people get influenced by all sorts of forces, and then you say they have sold out. I liked also the point which was made about enmity. Gen Z are not trying to be enemies with anybody, or looking for enemies, or doing whatever. They just, I think, from how I view them, they want better. They want things that work for them. In actual fact, if government, all this time that people have been talking about a youth Marshall Plan, like how do you create a youth Marshall Plan where the people are 15 to 35, and of course also those who are in schools below, they feel that they have citizenship in Kenya. They are provided for, and there are ways like the Ministry of Youth and so on, sports and stuff. They could have been thinking about a youth Marshall Plan where every ministry is told, how are you interacting with young people? What are you doing with young people? Even having, like, say, can youth make is there like a youth bank? This ASLA fund, could it have been a fund, properly managed, where people get, but not 500 shillings. 500 shillings, what business will you start with? All that kind of stuff. Because after the phone, where everybody has a phone and they do many things through the phone, the handset, then after the border, where many youth also got involved. One of the things that could have happened is accessible credit to young people, so that they can be in their businesses, they can be in the social enterprises and all that, so that there are things that really make youth know that they belong to Kenya. Kenya is their country. But one thing that really makes me, happy, somebody who taught in the university for a long time, worked with young people in civil society and so on in the county, what Gen Zs have done, with the support of millennials and some volunteers, Kenya will never be the same again. Even those who are thinking of coming into power later and stuff, they know that what has begun to happen, and this awakening, will not allow them to do politics as usual. And that is something to take our hats off for, Gen Zs. And I think as their movement is growing, they're also growing, so that they can do what is necessary to protect the movement from fizzling out, from being sabotaged, and from deception and all that kind of stuff. And so I really, Sonko, I really applaud you. Try to get, you guys who are in these spaces, the ones who are positive and are pro Gen Z for real, try to see what kind of conversation you can have, so that you streamline, the agendas and some of how you are approaching this struggle. If this Gen Z movement fails, then Kenya will fail. And I can repeat that. If this Gen Z movement fails, then Kenya will fail. and maybe finally to just come back to this dialogue thing. I wish, because I respect Baba. I know that because we have worked a lot together, especially in those early days of the Section 2A and the Constitution. But I wish he can actually talk to the Gen Zs and ask them, what do they really want? Instead of saying that they have agreed on a dialogue without having talked to the person who is aggrieved, the person who has raised all these issues. I wish he can take a step back and talk to the Gen Zs, so that he can understand where they are coming from, who they are, what they now want. Because there was a time he had said he's rested because they have taken over. So now it is like he wants to come back, but come back without again talking to the Gen Zs and asking them where we are, how should we go forward. And of course, I think it will be a question of respect to these young people who have taken the baton of the relay in terms of assisting to change our country. And of course, one expects and one hopes that the president will appreciate that the Gen Zs are operating truly to change the country, and when they ask for certain things, it is because they want the change, and they are not trying to say that they are not trying to undermine anybody, but simply to say what we want is what we think will assist to change our country, and we need to be listened to, and the things that are promised in the interim, they need to be done, and let us be acknowledged as a new force in the Kenyan scenario, and to actually be, instead of going to talk to the opposition, because it's the Gen Zs who have raised these issues. I think it is important to realize that what they are saying is what is on the table, but not what the opposition will put on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Asante sana, Professor. Is Eric still here? Eric, if you could kindly make your submissions. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I still am, although I feel a little bit inadequate speaking after Professor Kibwana and Kabando. But one, I think I want to agree with them, and I echo their sentiments that what has happened in this country.
I think, sorry, before Eric speaks, Kenyan lady, there's a question I had asked Professor, and it's like he never answered about this. I've shared the roadmap to full constitutional IEBC, and as you can see around in 4 or 5 clauses, the president is like he's the one who will decide who will be our chairman for IEBC and for most of the need that will be there, the commissioners. So, Prof, please, on that issue, why was it so necessary that on the new constitution the president had to decide so much on who will be the chairman of IEBC and also the commissioners? Because now this brings the point which we've been talking about the issue of conflict of interest.
And I think that, again, with the permission of the host, this is the point that I made earlier, that under normal circumstances, even the panel itself should not have been chosen by a majority of the political class, which is 5. And if they influence the religious sector, because those are now 2 also, that's 7. So that only the Law Society and this PAC may have a different view. But the law has passed now, and I think I tried to say that what we need to do, what Gen Z needs to do, is to focus on, because it's a competitive process of even appointing this panel, to see that there is targeting to be sure that people who have a blemish, so to speak, are called out, and they cannot. So there will have to be a lot of scrutiny on that, because it might not be easy now to take the law back to Parliament. And you remember, I also said that they are given 90 days, so that's 3 months. And apart from 3 months, the Parliament can still give them more time if they haven't completed their work at the panel in terms of instituting the IEBC. The parts of the constitution, parts of the constitution that were there, which were not kind of interfered with, because it's not, you cannot do certain things without a constitutional amendment. Even if the president is able to say that, now this is who will be the commissioner, the chair, and all that kind of stuff. The primary actually choice comes from the panel, and that is why it is very, very important, as I said earlier, to check and to see who is the panel and the people that the panel who applies, so that some people can be cancelled if they have a bad history, and then the people who are shortlisted. The Gen Zs go through each one of them and raise issues about them. So it's that vigilance, I think, that is going to help us. But anything about the constitution could not have been, anything about the constitution as is could not have been changed.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Prof. Kenyan lady, please proceed.
Eric, you got the mic.
Thank you, and Prof. Maybe the question so much appears to be that, and I think that goes back to the discussion that we've had, that there is a feeling that the political class, the presidency, and the politicians have departed from ideally what should be the true north, that is faithful implementation and execution of the Constitution. And so that where even power that ordinarily should then be exercised by the president or the political class, they start feeling that perhaps if it is exercised by those people, then it will not be exercised for the national good. And I think also Kabando did allude to that in terms of the trust deficit and the feeling that even the dialogue that is supposed to be, or rather the idea of the dialogue, is actually motivated by other underhand dealings, and that again is a concern that the Gen Zs have expressed, and I think that generally speaking, we've been having this conversation that the movement has no leadership, but it has a direction and it has a purpose, and it has a focus, and ultimately, I think that those will continue to be issues that will be central to that discussion. But for me, I just want to say that one, that this movement is extremely phenomenal. It is unprecedented. It is something that makes or should make all of us as Kenyans proud. I suspect that we are making other countries across the continent extremely jealous of the kind of political agitation and the kind of freedom and the kind of actions that we have taken, and probably we are making the leadership across the African continent also extremely agitated and uncomfortable, in the sense that we are likely to export this agitation to other countries and probably shake the political establishment as it were. But then again, looking across the continent and across the not just the continent but across the world, we are beginning to see changes that are reflective of the kind of aspirations that have been expressed by the Gen Z. And so I don't think that we are alone as a country in that space. And it's something that we should agitate and then continue to seek for. My parting shot would be just like the oil industry has had to adopt an extremely efficient measure of transparency in terms of pricing, in terms of ownership, including beneficial ownership, and in terms of the transactions that are carried out between oil companies and governments in a manner that has brought about a lot of transparency and efficiency in the manner in which some of these contracts, and considering just how precious oil is, that we should ensure that we do not lose that, even as everything else is going on, that we do not lose that aspect of transparency in how government is run. And that, in my view, in the short term, will lead to a change in our politics, an ethical change in our politics, because the kind of things, there's always talk. I mean, you listen to people and everyone believes that corruption is budgeted for, but no one has been able to pinpoint it and bring it out, and it becomes a national discourse. And so, if, for example, if there is budgeted corruption, and there are people who are talking about it, then it becomes something that those that engage in that activity then know that we cannot be able to do this, because if we do, it will be highlighted and people will ask questions and they will demand answers. And then we get to a point where things like resignation from public office because of public disapproval then becomes part of our political psyche, because the challenge that we're dealing with, the problem that we're dealing with, is not one that has a quick fix. It's we have to do it regrettably within our laws, within our institutions. And so what we need to do, because that is what has been lacking in this country. It has not been the lack of laws, it has not been the lack of the constitution, it has not been the lack of institutions, but it's because these institutions lack a breadth of culture that propels them to act ethically. And this is what this movement is trying to achieve. And then so we have to try and see how then do we operate within our current political establishment, our current political structure, our current laws and the constitution, but in a way that will breathe new life into those institutions. Because if we breathe new life into those institutions, some of the challenges that we are facing will become challenges of the past. If we are talking about, for example, police brutality, and there is greater accountability and greater transparency in terms of how police use their power, that in effect would snowball into having a police force that is more responsive to the needs of the citizen, that is less brutal, that is more humane in terms of how it handles people, that, things like abductions and some of the things that we have seen become a thing of the past, because the only way we can change that is by bringing in a culture of transparency, bringing in a culture of accountability, and bringing in a culture where people know that they will not get away with any transgressions, that as a country we will not be accused of having a short memory, and all these things over time, if we can be able to find a mechanism to maintain that element, would work. But ultimately, we are going to have a challenge, because we can say all the things we want to say. We can talk about the ills that are there in the government. We can talk about what our culture is, coming from colonialism, and where we are, tribalism, and all those things. But a time comes when you have to draw a line in the sand and to say, you know what, from this moment, this is where we are. This is where we find ourselves. How do we get out of the hole that we are in? And I think the only way we can be able to do that, and to do it successfully, is to sustain a culture of accountability. I look at what we have been doing, much as I may have um, um, may not understand how it works. When we say, let's go and salamia so and so, let's go and salamia our MPs, let us go and do this. In other jurisdictions, it actually works in a way that those who are in public office understand that they are there as an institution of trust, and that immediately they lose the trust of the members of public, either by even their own private behavior in private. And that is what is contained in our leadership and integrity in terms of the Constitution, that not only your not only your public actions, but also your private actions should be scrutinized and should matter when it comes to leadership. And so that if you conduct yourself in private, yet you are a public officer, in a manner that does not bring honor to that office, then you're supposed to lose your seat. If we can maintain and find a way in terms of how we bring that to bear on our political establishment, to bear on our public office, then we would have achieved a true revolution in this country, true change in terms of how we manage. Because what we do is that we make it unfashionable for people to do the wrong things, because it has become fashionable to do the wrong things. But once we make it unfashionable for anyone to do the wrong things, then the people who are motivated to join politics for the reason that they would be able to get away with certain things, then will shy away. And those that really want to serve the people and to serve their country and to be a difference in the institution of the country would then step forward, and it will give us an opportunity to then realize all these issues that we are agitating about. And I think that ultimately we have to find a way to concretize that, and have mechanisms for seeking accountability, both at the national level and at the county level, in a manner that will bring about a lasting legacy of change in the manner in which we manage public office. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to participate and to share my little thoughts on this very, very important discussion.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Kenyan
you.
lady,
Thank you.
maybe just to finish on Kenyan lady, please. I'll be out of network in a few minutes, and there's something that Eric has touched on, and it's something that has been bothering me for so long. And now that Eric is here, a legal mind, and then there is a professor, and Kabando, an activist, he has also been in these spaces for so long. My background is in finance, and there is something even David Ndi was saying last week, that you people need to pay taxes, because we have these loans that we are paying. We have these foreign debt, that external debts that we are paying, that I don't know, that needs to be, if we don't do this, then as a country we will default, and then these are the repercussions that will come in. And then I was like, wait a minute, what if we say, then let's default first? Because I run a company, and every month when we do our budgets for the expenditure for the following month, and then we also plan our revenues, we always sit down and say, what is our debt as of date this and this for the profit and loss account for this month. And then we know we owe KCB this much, we owe NCBA this much, we owe this bank this much. And then from there, from our revenues, we are able to plan on how we are going to pay those debts. So here is a scenario whereby in 2012, as Kibaki was leaving, our national debt was at 1.4 trillion. So my assumption is the government that came next, that is Uhuruto, they had the responsibility of generating revenue or raising revenue, at the same time doing other development projects, as they also pay the debt. If you see our national debt for the last 10 years, it has been growing exponentially. If you deduce that graph, it is like we really don't pay the debt that we owe. So for example, if in 2013 our debt was 1.4, the following year we borrowed, an assumption, we borrowed maybe 2 trillion. As we are borrowing this, there is always an element we are borrowing. This is our budget for this year, and from this budget we are also paying this much debt. So where is our national debt register that is telling us from the time of, let's even not go to Moi, because we all of us accept that was a critical juncture in 2002, whereby we said now we are starting a new leaf. Let's go to when Kibaki was living in 2013, 2012. Our national debt was 1.4 trillion. All of it, external and internal. Currently, we are being told our national debt is 7.6 trillion. My point is, we as Kenyans, this political class is forcing us into repayment of odious debts that in reality never came to Kenya, or if that money came in, then you are not responsible on how it was, the money was utilized. So for me, Theuri and Professor, we always say all laws emanate from natural laws. That is from the laws of fairness. That be the way you are fair to another man, then you also expect them to be fairer unto you. And from there, we form laws. So this is a person, IMF, World Bank, they are coming and telling our government, like, Eurobond, how much do you want to raise? 500 billion. Okay, we are giving you this money. Whatever you're going to do with it is none of our business. When you go to court again, the court tells you ignorance is never a defense before a court of law. So these foreign these foreigners who have manifested themselves, and they are into this financial space of work, they have made us slaves. They are financial slaves, are pumping money into corrupt regimes without really caring if the money that they are pumping in is used constitutionally. Prof, our constitution says that if you are borrowing externally, then that money should be specifically used for development projects. We've borrowed externally 7.6 trillion. Can we be able, and I don't know how much we paid as of now. Actually, most of the debts are odious debts. Can we be told where is the 7.6 trillion in terms of development projects that the two regimes are, because these two regimes are one and the same. Can we be told there is this 7.6 trillion in this project, this and this and this and this? If they are not able to do that, then Eric and Prof, can we kindly default and say we are not going to pay these 2 euro bonds? We are not paying this money that we owe IMF, and life continues. If it doesn't, then that will be our critical juncture. We survived 2020 without so much importation. You were told that we cannot survive without importation. COVID came, ikakaa almost 2 years. There were no importations, and we survived. Hii kitu ya kutuambia sijui ati you cannot survive without wazungus. No. Life has, and if maybe this is the way we should end as a society, then let it be the way we end, so that when our sons and daughters sprout in future, at least they found that their fathers and forefathers, their uncles, brothers, and grandfathers did something for this country. Because all we are asking is, you are borrowing this money, where is it going? It's going let me tell you, today when the president met with akina Rao, hiyo ni do inatembea, nothing else. Money is being exchanged. Our money, the next day, this guy David Ndi will come doing a lot of voodoo economics hapo, akituandikia hii ni deni yenye lazima mlipe. No, we are at a position whereby we are saying, you are taking our money, then we need to see it. We need to see our money. We do not need to be in your positions, but we need to see where our money is going. And then Eric, lastly, is it possible pia tunaambiwa nyumba yenye, apart from kuwamulika na kuwasalimia, is it possible we now start knowing our MP lives in Langata, house number this, and so that tukienda hatuendi kugongea mtu mwingine, tunaenda specifically hapo kumsalimia. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me take this opportunity real quick to welcome Afrocentric. He's the other selfless millennial that has been hosting us in his space. Karibu sana, Afrocentric. Please go ahead, Eric.
Okay, quickly, one, the consequences of failing to pay our debts is that we then end up placing the country at a very, very high risk of an economic boil down because of there's a rating that the country is given, so that if you are to be able to attract debt, you need to have a good rating. There's a question of the reputation that we have as a country. So I think that for me, the option of a deliberate failing to pay of those debts is one that will have greater economic impacts that will make life much more difficult. And remember, the agitation that we're having is one that seeks to look at what can we do to improve our standards of living. What can we do to make it easier? Because remember, all this was triggered by the Finance Act and some of the changes that had been proposed in law that, in our view, would have made life much more difficult. And so we are looking, and what we are probably saying is that perhaps we are not managing our resources very well. We are not. We are taking debt, but we are not using the debt in a manner that is consistent with the purpose for which we obtained that debt. And I think that is the question that we're having, so that we shouldn't gravitate towards taking an action that defeats the noble intentions that people have. So perhaps the money that may have been obtained was probably not used for the right reasons. Can we then shine a light on that aspect and begin to ask questions about how that was done, and then begin to make recommendations to ensure that that never happens again, and so that when we, for example, if it is a Eurobond or whatever we get, that we get all that money, and that money actually comes into the country, into the consolidated fund, and it is used for the purpose for which it is taken, and that the purpose for which that loan has been taken is actually one that in the long term has a greater economic benefit that then justifies the move to actually go and get that loan. And I think that where we are, even a country like the United States is borrowing and everything, it basically means that we must be able to borrow, but also look at how we can review our expenditure to bring down our reliance on external borrowing, so that we largely finance our operations from internally generated revenue, and that then we take borrowing that has greater return economically on the country. And that's one thing. The other thing that I was talking about, and I think the question that I was asked, we get to know where the MPs are living and whatever, I think is a question that was taken out of context, and perhaps it wasn't understood properly. What I meant is that in other countries, and of course we always have to look at other places where democracy probably works so well, because our constitution says that as we enforce our rights, and as we take any action in advancing the constitution, then we must take action that ensures the greatest possible enjoyment of that right, and also ensures that we adopt standards that are commensurate with the best practices in other developing democracies. And it's for that reason that I'm looking at other developed democracies. And basically what I was saying is that the question of public trust in most other countries is extremely important. And that is why you'll find that when people lose the public trust, they actually tender their resignation. And they do that because of the reputation, how important reputation is in holding public office in democracies that have actually matured. And I hope that we can then begin to fashion our discussion towards that level, so that we are not talking of the kusalamia of where we are beating up someone, or where we are taking action that either embarrasses them, or we are invading their phone calls or their spaces with embarrassing messages and everything. But we are talking of a situation where we are pushing for accountability to the level where, if, for example, someone comes to church and is a politician who has misbehaved, that the church would not gladly receive him. They will tell him, no, I think that you are wrong, and you need to apologize, or you need to offer and tender your resignation. If they come, for example, to your restaurant to eat, you are able to tell him, look here, I stand for certain values, and your presence here violates the values which, as a business person, we stand for. And so for that reason, we are not able to offer you any services. Please leave. You would find that kind of behavior in democracies that have actually advanced. And I think what we are doing right now is a way of trying to say that if you go against the public will, if you lose our trust, then there'll be consequences to it. But I'm hoping that we can refine the consequences to a level where someone knows that, yes, unfortunately, I have lost the trust of my people. I no longer have their confidence to continue to represent them. And for that reason, it is important that I tender my resignation. So I just thought that it is important I clarify that, so that we do not take it to be that need in our political space. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric, for your submission. And I do agree with that, because, like in America, what we do is they have the open lines. See, we have to see what we are provided with at home that will be able to help us reach the politicians. Now, that is not there. For me to be able to reach the Nakuru East MP, I mean, I don't even know how. First of all, So also, I think that we have to look at it that way, because we do not have those tools. We don't have that mechanism, because like in the US, there's a line that's always open. Like when we are submitting our grievances, even about Kenya, even about what's going on right now, there's a line that's open for me at the Secretary of State that is specific for African affairs. When I call that line, I can, file any complaint. I can talk to them, and you know what I'm saying? We don't have that accessibility for our MPs at home. So yes, I do agree with you on that extent, but thanks for the movement. Thanks for the movement. I think we'll be able to do better from now. So could we kindly have Hannah, and then Hannah hasn't spoken, and then Six Siox, I believe, hasn't spoken, and then we can have Miriam. I think Miriam, you're speaking the second time, so let's do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Kenyan lady, KOT, my people, Afrocentric Sex. Kenyan lady, touche. You don't have the governor of Makueni, Kivuta, as your governor. You know, his number is right on his bio. How about that? Yeah. A first world service in a third world country. That is the example this Wajumbas and governors should take, to be quite honest. If you go on his bio, Makweni people are very lucky. I hope there's any one person from Makweni, please request the mic and we could hear from you. That said and done, thank you guys for the space. Good to see you, Kenyan lady, KOT, Afro, and many people, Kings, a lot of you familiar faces. Aisha, who, Six, and plenty of you.
Hannah, sorry. Let me just say this real quick. When and Professor Kivuda, you can just correct us. When they come out of office, we have access to them. But when they are in office, you will never see that number displayed. I mean, I haven't seen many. That's why we are having, Dr. Miguna just sneaking in the numbers somehow and putting them on Twitter. But I stand corrected. When they are in office, we don't have those numbers. We don't have accessibility to them. That's it. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's absolutely correct. You don't have their number. Definitely, they'll be all over the place. Not only the number, but they'll dish out the dots. You know what I mean? And Kings was asking a question. I think I'm gonna put that question that was answered in a very simple language, a layman's language. And imagine this is me, that a person who's not good with numbers. We were paying 30%, I think 30 to 35%, if I'm not sure, I think it's about 30% of our GDP we're paying back about 70%. So 30% of our collective, whatever, on our GDP is what we use. So you can see how the graph is going. The other issue about defaulting on this loan is not an option, because wewe ukichukua pesa kwa bank, kwanza sasa unaenda kuchukua pesa, the bank has to make sure that unaweza kulipa. The more asset you have, the better for them to secure that loan. Now, as a country, if we default, we will have issues not only to secure loans, we can stay without the loans, but companies that want to invest, they would see it as a high risk. So maybe big investment coming into the country. They'll say, this country that cannot even get a loan, you will not do a business with somebody anakwambia nimekosa loan kwa bank because sina kitu ya kuweka as a security, but I guarantee you I'm a good person. I'm very trustworthy. You won't know. You will not do it. So not only will it affect us that way, it will affect the investment coming in and a lot of other things. That said and done doesn't mean that 70% we're paying, because why the loan is not closing, the gap is not closing. The more it says, the more you pay. And the actual, depending now on each country in Africa, this is how they extort money from Africans. And the higher the risk of that country, the grading that you're given, a low risk, medium risk, high risk, your interest depends on that. Now we've been degraded as a country. We have given a lower grade than when we were paying about 30% of our GDP. So, which means now we are paying more interest than now that we are paying about 70% of our GDP. So we are paying more in interest because we have been downgraded from whatever level we were. All this, why am I saying? All this would have been avoided if we were spending the money the right way. Believe you me, even the first world do, our my MPs who anafanyanga dodgy things. Lakini here, that's an insult right there. People don't have faith in him. His name has been tarnished. He's been associated by bringing, let's say, expired fertilizer. Like, you have the head of the state telling you, no, this guy was not found guilty, therefore he can still do his job. Yeah, there is no integrity. That is what we are missing. Integrity, zero. We don't have shame. We don't have integrity. These people, I don't know which world they come from, to be quite honest. But believe you me, and I don't want to go into that, but in one of these MPs, they're saying that they live here, they live there, getting money on second houses, employing their own kids, saying that somebody is working for them, a lot of things. It became a big scandal. Everything online. Some of them were taken to court. Some of them were fined. But today, if anybody wants to see what their MP is earning, they just go on the website and it's there in black and white. But before, they were billing the government a lot of money. And this was whistleblowed by money from people. And individuals who are doing rogue deals and this and that, and you call them lobbyists, or you call them lords in the House of Lords, somebody who's rich, paying money to the government, to their campaigns, yada, 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 finds himself in the House of Lords. Alafu baada ya hiyo, valia masaa. KOT, can you not play Amas Afrocentric? Can you guys play hiyo kitu ya huyo mtu alikuwa anasema sijui ananunua mshipi for 30,000 belt. Tai, no, mshipi 50,000. Tai amesema ni 20,000. Now this guy, the one time he leaves his house, akivaa hiyo belt, avaa hiyo saa, avaa hiyo mshipi, avaa hiyo viatu, the guy is running a cost of 1.5 million and above. bottom uongeze suti. Afa nakwambia hapana, unajua hiyo belt moja 50,000 iko na rangi mbili, you don't know, ulihitaji belt 3 ama 4. Unavaa hiyo moja unageuza huku unavaa brown, siku moja
Can
unavaa
I play the audio?
please play it.
Okay.
Hawana we ujui nunua belt moja ya 50,000 lakini nunua ya kupendua brown upande huu, black upande huu. Ujui bwana. Umeshani. Na itakuwa ni quality. Sasa ukitaka the brown side, people think you have another belt. Nipige hiyo 50. The most expensive watch you have, that which I bought with my own money. Yes. Well, it was almost like, I think if I remember well, because it's time now, it's about 900,000 or something. Watch, yeah.
Okay, so that is the belt that this guy bought with his own money. Ajongelele nye amenunua na the government's money. Anyway, wacha tuendelee kusikiza.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, it was, I think, summary of that, yeah.
So if we do the quick math, for example, of this expensive watch, then the belt ya 50,000 to 950, then tucheze na viatu. Umesema viatu ni 80.
Yeah.
Let's say round it off to 100.
Yeah.
So let's say 1.1 something. Yeah. Someone can leave the house anatembea hivi.
Yeah.
Unajua kutoka juu mpaka chini, amevaa kitu kama 1.5 because
na shati uvai yote safari moja. We ujui.
Sasa sina najua.
Uvai yote safari moja. Unapanga.
Ukitoka na style,
expensive unavaa hii suit yako kidogo ya 20 or 30,000. So ile ingine
una balance. So nakupata.
So this guy generally anasema the cheapest suit yenye anavaa ni ya 30,000, yeah? So akivaa ya 900k watch anaweka suti ya 30k. Anyway, tuendelee kusikiza.
Ndio siku umetoka na saa ya 900.
Yeah.
Then umevaa suti ya 30,000.
Yes.
Tuko 930
something, yeah.
Nini ingine?
Yeah.
Tai?
Tai ni kidogo 20 hivi.
Yeah. 20,000.
Yeah, there.
Tai ni kidogo 20,000.
What? Unafaa? Okay.
Sikia.
So hiyo ndio hiyo audio. So back to you, our co-host, and kuna so many people down.
At one belt, which is 50. Sasa. And then not the one I bought, the one I bought with my own money. So how many did he buy with the Kenyans' money? You know, these people are insulting us right in our faces. To cut my story short, Kenyans, absolutely this Gen Z movement cannot fail. And Baba made a big mistake today. Because why ameenda kusimama? It's like they're talking to who? Time ile wao walikuwa wanaongea pamoja, wanaenda kufanya kuja kana mimi kuja ongea na Wakenya. No. This is Gen Z's. These guys, they mean business. And Gen Z's, if you fail, you have failed Kenyans. Each and every one of you will be hunted down like an animal. And these guys mean business. So you better not fail us.
our guest speaker speak.
First and foremost, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for having been around in the space and coming here to hold our leaders to account. Now, first and foremost, plus, one thing that we are forgetting is that these people got into these offices millionaires and multi-billionaires. So we at times are not able to draw the line, because for somebody like Murkomen, I believe when he was being vetted for the job of CS, he declared his worth to be around 700 and something million. So that is subject to debate, considering nobody knows if whatever he said is what is there, or he just created some roof to accommodate the loot. So anyway, let me move away from that. The agenda and what I've heard from most of our speakers is one.
We can hear you.
Yeah. So this came from the Kenyan elites and the political elites, and my worry is the fight, the agitation.
Hii ni 700 million, hii ni 700 billion, hii ni 700.
Somebody is interrupting.
I think the
The issue of trusting political elites. By this I mean, even if we are to have our leaders coming into this space, they'll at the end of the day be politicians or the political elites, so to say. And in my thinking, it is about individuals. We cannot tie it to a group. But at the end of the day, what is the common our grievances go to? Because one, we are very loud on Twitter, we are very loud on the social spaces, we are very loud on the streets. Because personally, somebody like me, I have a warning letter for not going to work, and somebody somewhere saw a photo of me being on the demos. So I already have a show cause letter that I need to respond to in 2 weeks' time. So where are we targeting our strength to? Because in these spaces, I've realized over time we start off so well, but in the long run, it degenerates into conversations about history. My thinking is Gidongo agitated for the problems that were there then. Our problems would, in a way, maybe in the same family or in the same sort of setup, but ideologically, our agitations are totally different, towards apart. So my call to my fellow millennials and the Gen Z is the crop of leaders that we are told to emulate or think through with. generations that were there, and I would like to maybe put case on case. There's something I've seen about World Bank withdrawing some funding of some youth program, and it shows that the more we want to keep coping, and the more that we want to look like what we would call developed democracies. Now, these are the first world and all that. They're now using some of these financial institutions The next thing we're going to have Gen Zs for UDA, Gen Zs for ODM, Gen Zs Mombasa, and trust you me, we'll be disintegrated by the time we'll be reaching where we're supposed to be. We'll be enemies within ourselves. Why I'm saying this is we need to really, really, really think about having people speak for us, having people be on these tables. Because if you look at the photos that were shared today from KICC, I don't think there was anybody in that photo who is less than 35 years old. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with a picture that this agitation is being hijacked. And the politicians that are capitalistic are going to make sure we have to have people to speak for us. So that we move away from this issue of calling people sellouts, thinking that people betrayed us for one, two, or the reason. Somebody might have done something in goodwill, but the interpretation by the general masses of the Gen Z would be somebody went there for their own good. So moving forward, if we are to have any space today, people will say whatever they will say. An next space tomorrow, others would say whatever they want to say. But at the end of the day, when people want to now come and sit at the table and say, we want accountability, who is the face of our agitation? It's okay, they hear the whatever goes on socials, but who is going to sit in those boardrooms and say, this is what was said? Like today, which Gen Z or millennial would know what was said in the KICC meeting? I'm sure it's nobody. And if there is, maybe the children of those people who are at KICC. And I'm sure they would not speak the same language a representative that is known to the masses as the leader of Gen Z would say or give us as feedback. So moving away from that, we've had conversations of austerity. Currently, the government has 21 ministries and almost, I cannot really get the exact number, but I'm sure you have over 100 parasitic. And she was telling me, at times you want to clear something that are there, ends up being, you'd find for you to clear one track, it would take you 2, 3, 4 hours. The kind of human resource that is put there, the kind of time wastage, the kind of others wanting to feel more important than the other, ends up even frustrating the clearance process. A case scenario is assuming you want to bring in maize from Tanzania, you have to go through the Agriculture and Food Authority. you have to go through KFIS, you have to go through KEBS. There's I think biosafety or something. So at the end of the day, all these people are just testing the same sample to be cleared. So the same job that is certifying that maybe maize is safe for importation and all that. By this I mean you're using 800,000 to collect 1 million. Does it make sense to you or me? I don't think it does. So that said and done, my rallying call for this want to ride on this, and for as long as we don't have leaders, trust you me, will be disintegrated by the time we want to achieve something. The other thing is somebody talked about having agendas. You see, slowly we are being disintegrated as we go. It was the finance bill. Now we have Nakumicha must go. We need to really find a way of accommodating everybody and maybe limiting the time to maybe 2 minutes.